This isn't exactly a true story, but it's a story that I know very, very similar things have definitely happened. So I'm gonna give you this before I close. So you can imagine a young man, right? He lives in the heartland of the United States. He's graduated from college. He's got a load of student debt. He's working full-time job, but it's not enough that he can live on his own. He's still living with the parents. Parents aren't too happy about that. And they've noticed that their son, who usually was just all over the computer and all that, he starts reading. He's always reading books. And the last year, he's gotten really, really literary. He's reading a lot. He's not talking as much, but he's reading a lot. They're a little bit worried about their son. So they say, you know what, on Saturday night, we're going to take him out to dinner. We're going to take John out to dinner, find out how he's doing. Maybe he can talk to him about possibly getting a better job, getting into a better life situation. We're going to take John out to dinner on Saturday night. So Saturday evening rolls around. They get a reservation at a decent restaurant. Mother walks up to John's room, knocks up on the door. John, we're going to head to the restaurant. John says, Mom, I'm reading a really good book. If you could just give me a few more minutes, I just want to finish reading this book. She says, okay. Goes away. Comes back to the door of the room. All right, John, you ready to get going? He says, Mom, I am at the most exciting part of this book. The hero is in so much trouble, and I just got to see how this book ends. I can't. She says, okay. She's a little bit frustrated. Goes away. Comes back. All right, John, you finished with your book. We got to get going. We got a reservation. They've got an evening plan. It's like, I'm almost done. Just one more page. It's a short book. I'm almost done. She said, okay. Comes back. John, hurry up. We gotta get going. What's going on here? All right, I'm almost done. A couple of minutes later, he comes flying out of the bedroom. He's all dressed. He's ready to go. He's like, all right, let's go to dinner. So they go to dinner. They get to the restaurant. They're in the restaurant, and they're sitting there across from each other. Father's sitting there, the mother's sitting there, John's sitting there. The father just making conversation. He says, so John, what was this book that you were reading that was so exciting, that you just couldn't get away from it? Was it science fiction? I know you really like science fiction, don't you? He says, no, it wasn't really science fiction, but it kind of reminded me of science fiction. A little more science fact than science fiction. I said, okay, John. I said, what were you reading? And he says, brought it with me, the Communist Manifesto. Of course, this is a Trump-supporting, rather conservative family, so their jaws kind of drop there in the restaurant, and they're looking over their shoulder. People see them, oh my goodness. And they said, John, you're reading the Communist Manifesto. I mean, what in the world? I mean, we figured you were reading like an action novel or something. What is this? He said, well, this is the most exciting story I've ever read. He says, really? He says, yeah. He says, the part where it says, a class of laborers who live so long as they find work and who find work only so long as their labor increases capital. These laborers who must sell themselves piecemeal are a commodity, like every other article of commerce, and are consequently exposed to all the vicissitudes of competition and all the fluctuations of the market. He's like, that reminded me of my job at the Amazon warehouse and how my boss is trying to drive me to work harder and ripping me off. And then when I read the part about how the modern laborer, instead of rising with the process of industry, sinks deeper and deeper below the conditions of existence of his own class. He becomes a pauper, and pauperism develops more rapidly than the population and the wealth. That made me think about how they're always trying to replace workers with machines. We're pretty close to having self-driving cars. Imagine how many people are going to lose their jobs when we have self-driving cars. These capitalists, they're really good at inventing new technology to make better profits, but it only leads to people getting poorer and poorer. And we talked about pauperism. I thought about how the roads in our neighborhood are crumbling. I thought how the standard of living is going down. I thought about all the student debt me and people my age have hanging over their heads. And then I read the part where it says, the need of a constantly expanding market for its products chasing the bourgeoisie over the entire surface of the globe. It must nestle everywhere, settle everywhere, establish connections everywhere. I thought about how Uncle John lost his job in the factory because they sent it to another country where people were working for less, and how they've got us all competing all over the world. Who will work for the lowest wages? Who will accept the worst conditions? I read about how it compels all nations, on pain of extinction, to adopt the bourgeois mode of production. It compels them to introduce what it calls civilization into their midst, to become bourgeois themselves. In one word, it creates the world after its own image. And when I read that part, I thought about how people are pouring into this country from Honduras. People are pouring into this country from Guatemala. People are pouring in from Haiti. Why? Because the same thing that they're doing to us now, impoverishing and deindustrializing our country, they've been doing to people all over the world for years, driving people into poverty to create one giant global economy. And that's why I couldn't put the book down. This is a book about us. This is a book about our community. I couldn't put it down. I had to get to the part where it said the first step in the revolution by the working class, the proletariat, is to raise itself to the position of the ruling class and win the battle for democracy. And that meant that we're going to have a government someday that fights for us and not for the billionaires. We're going to have people in Washington, D.C. who fight against the billionaire bankers and fight for working people like us. And I read the part where it said the proletariat will use its political supremacy to wrest by degree all capital from the bourgeoisie, to centralize the instruments of production in the hands of the state, of the organized proletariat as the ruling class, and to increase the total productive forces in society as rapidly as possible. I thought about what that could mean. Finding all the young men like me that are stuck in low-wage jobs, stuck in, living like a teenager into your adulthood, humiliated by student debt, degraded all the time. Talked about what it'll meant to mobilize us and get us working, get us making new breakthroughs in science, get us building high-speed railways. In China, they got these trains that are amazingly fast. They can go from Los Angeles to New York City in a couple hours. We could have that here if it weren't for the capitalists, right? I read about how we shall have an association in which the free development of each is the condition for the free development of all. I will have a government that will not see us simply as tools to make profits for corporations, but see every single person in the country as an asset, someone who could be unleashed to build a better country. Every person could be put to work to build a better society. And that's why I couldn't stop until I got to the last paragraph, where it said the communists disdain to conceal their views and aims. They openly declare that their ends can be attained only by the forcible overthrow of all existing social conditions. Let the ruling classes tremble at the communist revolution. The proletarians have nothing to lose but their chains, and they have a world to win. And it might be a long shot. It seems like a long shot, right? People in the United States have heard nothing from the time they were little kids up until adulthood that communism is evil, communism doesn't work. But Joe McCarthy drank himself to death. And Mao came down from the mountain. And A does not equal A. And you never step into the same river twice. And this is the best book I have ever read. And maybe I'm putting it down for now, but I will never put this book down. This is the most beautiful story I've ever read, and I am going to fight and die to make it come true.